Okay, in class today, we went over the first quiz and we started the second quiz, I think. Or anyway, we at least, well, I've got noise in the background. Sorry about that if you can hear it. But anyway, we started the college algebra quiz, and this is a review for the test. So I'm just going to go through this. We did this in class today, but if you weren't paying attention, you didn't take notes or whatever, at least it's right here. I'm going to just skim through it very quickly, this part right here, because we already did it in class today. So these are going to be questions. This whole entire first quiz will show up on the test. There'll be different numbers, but the same style of problem will be on the test. All right, so this is order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So we do parentheses first, exponents next. We don't have either one of those. What's next after that? It's multiplication. So we multiplied, got an 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. We came over here. We do have parentheses this time, so I did that parentheses, 3 minus 2, that's my 1. Let's use this pen. 3 minus 2 is 1, and then I did that 3 times 5, that's going to be 15. This is a 1 times 2 right there, 2 times 1, which is a 2. 15 plus 2 is 17. 6 minus 17 is negative 11. All right, then we came over here and we did a fraction. This is a plus right here. I had it written down as a minus, but on the quiz it was a plus. So first thing I did was multiplication. That's why I circled that. 2 divides into 4 and 6, goes into 4 twice, into 6 3 times. Multiply across, it's 2 over 15. Find a common denominator, that's 15. 3 times 5 is 15. 2 times 5 is 10. And then 15 times 1, 2 times 1, add them up. 10 plus 2 is 12. We don't leave it 12 over 15. We simplify it. 3 goes into both of those, into this 4 times, into this 5 times. That's your answer, 4 over 5. All right, this is a division problem with fractions. When we divide fractions, we always turn it into a multiplication problem. So really, we're multiplying by the reciprocal. That's why I circled this right here. So we take the top, you keep it the same, and then you multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of a fraction is just you flip it. That's all you do. So instead of division, I put multiplication, then I flip the bottom. It's 35 over 2. I simplify it. So I looked at 21 and 35, and I said 7 can go into both of those. 7 goes into 21 3 times, into 35 5 times. Nothing else can cancel out, so I just multiply straight across the top. 5 times 5 is 25. 3 times 2 is 6. All right, graphing, it's pretty straightforward. X is greater than negative 2, so I put a negative 2 on here. Greater than means we go to the right, or equal to means we darken in the circle. We color in the circle because it could be equal to negative 2 as well. That's what it means, greater than or equal to. So in order for it to be equal to, we color it in. Everything to the right, we just kind of make it a little bit bigger, put an arrow on there. We're good to go. This is going the other direction. This is x is less than 5. So it's not or equal to, so if it just says less than, we put an open circle at 5. It's less than, so less than goes to the left. So put an open circle at 5, everything to the left. That means this inequality right there. This says evaluate this expression. So we're going to take negative x is equal to negative 2, y is equal to 3, and the phrase that I use is plug and chug. We just take the negative 2, put it everywhere you see an x, take the 3, put it everywhere you see a y. So basically I just rewrote this. So it's negative 2 times x, which is negative 2. So I put it right there. And this is x times y. There's my x, there's my y. Multiply them, 4, negative 6. 4 plus negative 6 is negative 2. All right, so let's change colors. Let's go back to red. All right, I didn't do this one in class because of time, but now I got some time, so let's go ahead and do this one. So let's plug some numbers in for x and y here. This time we have absolute value, though. Well, I thought I changed the color. Let's go back. There we go. So we have absolute value. The only thing the absolute value does to this is we work what's inside of here. If it comes out negative inside of this, we just make it positive. If it comes out positive inside this absolute value, we just keep it positive. So it's really not that big of a deal with the absolute value. So it's 4 times x, so 4 and then parentheses x, so that's a 3, minus 5 times y, and y is negative 2, and then it's absolute value. Now look, don't take all the negatives and just make them positive. That's not what we want to do here. What we want to do is work the problem just like it is, but then once we're finished getting one single number, if it's negative, we keep it positive. If it's positive, it just stays positive. So let's do this. Let's do the multiplication first. Again, it's order of operations. Let's put the absolute value. So 4 times 3 is 12 minus, and then 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. All right? Minus a negative is the same as positive. Add a line, change the sign, as a lot of people like to say, or I just say add the opposite. That's 22. It's already positive, so the absolute value really doesn't do much to this at all. It doesn't do anything to it. You just keep it 22, and that's your answer. All right, let's do this one. It says simplify each expression. Make sure that your exponents are positive for your answer. All right, so we looked at everything inside this parentheses as being cubed. So I cube everything. I took the x to the negative first and cubed it. I took the y and I cubed it. And you just have to know the rule. This is called the power rule. This is when you have an exponent being taken to another power, you multiply those exponents together. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3, so it's x to the negative third. I don't really do anything to that y cubed, so I just drop it down. But I can't just circle this and keep that as my answer because you have a negative exponent. This says all the exponents have to be positive. So what do we do with it? Well, I take that exponent, or I take that whole term right there, that whole variable with the exponent, and I throw it down to the bottom. Once I do that, though, I got to change the sign of the exponent. That's one of the rules that we learned. You can flip it, but then you got to change the sign. So it was negative, now it's positive. It was on the top, now it's on the bottom. We didn't have to do anything to this y cubed because it's already a positive exponent, so we didn't have to move it. So that stays on the top, this one flips to the bottom, and then there's your answer. All right, we did this right at the end of class. We just kind of ran out of time. So let's take a look at this. Again, we got to make sure all the exponents are positive. So what I did is I just wrote out the top, 4x to the negative second, and then this parentheses is being taken to the negative first power. So I just took y to the negative first, then I took z to the negative first. They're all being multiplied. All right, and then I don't mess with that until the next step. So the bottom, I have 2 cubed. Well, 2 cubed is 8, so I made that an 8. And then I don't really do anything to this. X to the 4th y, I just write it down, x to the 4th y. Now, the first thing I did, I saw a 4 on the top and an 8 on the bottom. So 4 divides into 4 one time, and 4 goes into 8 2 times. So there's a 1 on the top, a 2 on the bottom. That's why you get the 2 right there. All right. And let's see. Yeah, right here on the top, really all I did was just get rid of those parentheses. I just put x to the negative second right next to y to the negative first, z to the negative first. So I didn't do a whole lot from here to here. But now what we can do is we can start simplifying. We haven't simplified a whole lot just yet. Just the 4 and the 8 basically is all we've done so far. So what we're going to do here, this was x to the negative second. In fact, all these things on the top have a negative exponent. So what I need to do is I need to make them positive. So I'm going to flip them. I'm going to take this, flip it to the bottom. All right, so I took that x to the negative second, flipped it, put it right here. I just didn't have room to put it there. I just put it underneath of there. The 2's already down there, and I moved the x down to the bottom. Take that y to the negative first, flip that to the bottom. So I actually moved that right here. Okay, the y to the negative, or y to the first was already here. And then I took this y to the negative first, flip it to the bottom, which makes it y to the first. Then I took this z to the negative first, which is a negative exponent. I flip it to the bottom again, which makes it z to the first. And now I can simplify some stuff. The 2, I don't do anything with that. I just put it right there on the bottom. This stuff right here, the x to the 4th x squared, I multiply those together. What's the rule? The rule is you add the exponents. So 4 and 2 is 6. X to the 4th times x squared is x to the 6th. Kind of the same thing here. Y to the first times y to the first is y to the second. The z, I don't really mess with it. Is just put a z down there. Now, what's on top though? See, all that stuff moved, and if it all moves, I still have a 1 left on top. So that's why I make sure I put a 1 up here. That went to the bottom. I got to have a numerator, and the numerator is 1. That's my answer. It's simple as that. All right. I know I went pretty quick, but I talked in a little bit more detail today in class, but now you see it. All right, I will have, let me see, I got the test here. Let me take a look. I think I only have one of these. Yes, I only have one of them on the test. So you can do either one. It says the lengths of the legs of a right triangle are given. Find the hypotenuse. So it's basic. You don't have to draw this. I'm doing it just to show you what's going on. It says you have a right triangle. Okay, so there's a right triangle, and it says the legs are given. So one leg is 6, and the other is 8. And what we have to do is find the hypotenuse. So we usually use the letter C to represent the hypotenuse. And you have to know the Pythagorean Theorem. The Pythagorean Theorem says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, so the legs are always the a and b. The c is always the hypotenuse. So basically, you just plug in a 6 for the a and an 8 for the b and find out what c is equal to. So let's do that. So I've got 6 is the a, so squared. And it doesn't matter which one you call the a or b. It makes no difference at all. You'll see that in a minute. So 6 squared plus 8 squared, and that's going to equal, we don't know the c, so I just leave it c squared, all right? Because I'm going to add these together. It doesn't matter what order you add them. So I could have put the 8 in for the a, and I could have put the 6 in for the b, but we just used what they gave us right here. So this is going to be 36. This is going to be 64. That's equal to c squared. 36 and 64 is 100. But that equals c squared. That's not my answer. Okay, that's not the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is not 100. All right, if you thought about it, it wouldn't make any sense. If this length is 6 and this one's 8, there's no way in the world that this is going to be 100, right? But this is equal to c squared. So how do I get c by itself? Well, I take the square root of c. The square root of c squared is just c. And then the square root of 100, what multiplied by itself is 100? That's 10. The square root of 100 is 10. You didn't even need a calculator for that one. All right, so that's how you do that. This is the same exact one, but just for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through every single one. But you could try it if you wanted to. And let's, now I'm looking at the wrong quiz. No, that's the right quiz. Oh, okay, I was looking at the wrong problem. Yeah, so this one is 13. These are all special triangles. This is actually an offshoot of a 3, 4, 5 triangle. If you just double 3, you double 4, and you double 5, that's what you get. This is also a special triangle, 5, 12, 13 triangle. But I do want to see your work, though. I want to see how you got all this stuff right here. Okay, I want to see. All right, let's do this. I told you you did not have to, 3 and 4 is not going to be on the test, so I'm not even going to worry about going through that because we're just trying to review for the test right now. All right, let's take a look at number 5. It says find the area of a rectangle. I will give you a formula sheet with all the areas and circumference and volume and surface area and all that kind of stuff. I'll give you that. So all you have to do is look to find area of a rectangle. If you find area of a rectangle, you're going to see that it's length times width. All right, I don't know if I can't remember if I just, let's see, let me find, I got my area worksheet thingy here. Yeah, it just says A equals LW, all right, which is not that big of a deal. Now look what they tell you. They tell you the length, that's the L. They tell you the W, that's the width, all right? You can just plug them in and figure out what the area is. The length is 9 centimeters, so I'm going to put 9 centimeters times the width, which is 4 centimeters. Now, it's very important. I'm going to tell you right now, and I've told you this before, and I told you this on the quiz. If you don't put the right units, then you're going to get it wrong. Even if you do the math right, you're going to get the problem wrong if you don't put the correct units. All right, so it's very important that you do that. 9 times 4 is 36. Now, since I put the units here, it's centimeters times centimeters. So what's anything times itself? It's that number squared. It's the same thing with the units. It's centimeters squared. It's not 36 squared, it's centimeters squared. And that is your answer for the area of a rectangle. Very basic, very simple. It should be pretty easy for you, all right? Now, I'm not telling you right now exactly what areas I'm going to ask you to find. Okay, I could ask you to find the area of a triangle or the area of a rectangle or the area of a circle, okay? But I'm just doing these problems. So you just have to know your formulas, but you don't even have to like memorize them. You just have to be able to look at the sheet of paper that I give you with all the formulas on it and be able to use it. That's all I'm asking you to do is just use the formulas. All right, let's do another one. This is the area again, but it's of a triangle. So you look up on your little formula sheet. Area is 1/2. Let's see how I wrote it. You could write it two different ways. Yeah, I wrote it like this: 1/2 base times height. So that's the area of a triangle. And you look again at your formula sheet, and there's a title to it. I even put it in bold, I think. No, it's not in bold, but still there's a title there, and it says area of a triangle, and it tells you what the formula is, and it's written right here. You just got to take the numbers and plug it in. It couldn't be any easier. So it's 1/2 times the base times the height. Do they tell us the base and the height? Sure they do. They say the base is 4 centimeters, and they tell you the height is 9 centimeters. And you just work this thing out. You can do it a couple ways. You could go 1/2 of 4 if you wanted to, or you could go 9 times 4, which is 36, and then take half of it. There's a couple ways you could approach this, but that's how, let's do it that way. So it's 1/2 times what? 36, because 9 times 4 is 36. Look at your units. It's in centimeters, and it's centimeters times centimeters, which is going to be centimeters squared. Let's finish this off. 1/2 of 36 is 18 centimeters squared. That's how you do that. All right, let's do another one. Let's do number 7. Hold on just a second. I keep getting all these texts. I just want to see if they're no, I can read those later. All right, so let's continue. This says the area and circumference of a circle. So again, you look at your formula sheet, and if you look at your formula sheet, it says the area of a circle is pi r squared. R is for radius, pi is 3.14. So I want you to use, on the test, I want you to use 3.14 on the test, okay? Don't use the whole decimal number that your calculator gives you. Just use 3.14, all right? That will make things much more uniform when I look at the questions, look at your answers. All right, so let's find the area. It's pi r squared. Pretty basic. So you just put pi, which is 3.14, times the radius. And do they tell you the radius? Sure do. This time it's in feet. It's not in centimeters. So it's 2 feet. And then what are you going to do with that? You're going to square that. So it's 3.14 times 2 squared, which is 4. And then feet squared, you just write it feet squared. All right, you multiply those together, and I believe you get 12.56. So it's 12.56 when you multiply those together. And again, your units are feet squared or square feet. That's how you write your answer. Let's do circumference of a circle. Well, circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. You don't even have to memorize it. All right, I'm taking it super easy on you. You don't have to memorize it. You can look at your list of formulas, see circumference of a circle, write it down, 2 pi r. So let's plug some stuff in. So it's 2 times 3.14 times the radius, which is 2 feet. Now you're not squaring anything on this, okay? This is the distance around the circle, so it's not squared, it's not area. But if you look at the math on this one, I'm not saying this is the way it's going to be on the test at all, but I'm just saying on the quiz, you actually get the same exact number. So because 2 times 2 is 4, times 3.14, just like we did it here, is 12.56. But it is circumference. Look at this. This is not squared. You're not squaring this at all. You squared the feet over here on this problem. See that squared? Squared the radius. That means you're going to get feet squared. On this one, you just get feet because it's a distance. You don't measure distance in square feet. All right, enough of that. Let's keep going. Volume of a right circular cylinder. So again, I'm not going to put the formula sheet up on this, but you can look at the formula sheet and you can find volume. It's on there, and it'll say volume of a right circular cylinder, and it'll give you a formula. And that formula, in this particular case, is pi times r squared times the height. Okay, let me scooch this over so we can see all that stuff. Yeah. All right, so what do? We put 3.14 times the radius squared. We've done that before. That shouldn't be too hard. The radius is 8 inches. So I put 8 inches, but I'm squaring that thing. I'm squaring the radius. And then times the height. The height is 9 inches. So I put 9 inches. All right. 8 squared, yeah, you can do this all in your calculator. So 8 squared is 64 times 3.14 times 9. Put that all in the calculator, and you get 1808.64. All right, because you only use 2 decimal places here, because we're only using 3.14. We're not using the pi button on the calculator. But let's look at our units. Right here, this is going to be inches squared, and this is going to be inches. Well, what's inches squared times inches? Well, that would be inches cubed, because they're asking for volume. Volume is always cubed, area is always squared. The length, or the distance, circumference, perimeter, that's just whatever your units are. It's not squared or cubed. And that's how you'd write your answer. Okay, make sure you get the units correct. I'm sorry, but if you put 1808.64 inches and that's it, I'm going to mark it wrong, because I'm telling you right now that I will require that you keep the units correct. I want to know that you know how to do it. That's why I give a test. So I know that you know how to do something. All right, let's do one more of these and we'll move on to the next quiz. The surface area of a right circular cylinder. Again, you look at your formula sheet and it is this. It's 2 pi r squared, and then you're going to add some stuff to it. You're going to go 2 pi r h. All right. We talked about how we came up with this formula when we first did this problem in class. I'm not going to do that. I'm just want you to be able to use that formula sheet. So you look at right circular cylinder, look for surface area. This is it right here. So let's just plug some numbers in. So it's 2 times 3.14 times the radius. Again, we're using the same numbers that we did for 9. It's 8 inches, and that thing is squared, plus 2 times pi, 3.14, times the radius, which is 8 again. It's 8 inches, times the height, which is 9 inches. And let's see what we get. You can punch all those numbers in your calculator. Make sure you put an 8 squared in here, which is 64, okay? Make sure that you do that. So you punch all the numbers in, and you get 854.08. And it's good to practice using your calculator, because this can be a little bit confusing. What I would do is I'd get an answer for this, maybe write it down, and then get an answer for this, write it down, and then add them together, and you get this thing right there, okay? Yeah. Well, what about our units, though? Well, look at this. This is going to be inches squared. This is going to be inches squared. So inches squared plus inches squared is just inches squared. Again, you're asking for area, surface area. Area is always going to be squared. Volume is always going to be cubed. The length, or the distance, is always going to be just whatever the units are. So that would be your answer right there. All right, let's keep going. We did these just the other day, so I'm going to go fairly quick on these as well. So let's see what it says to do. All right, add, subtract, multiply, or divide is indicated. All right, so we just do what it asks you to do, just simplify it, and should be written as a single polynomial in standard form. Standard form basically just means you put the higher exponents first and work your way down to the lowest exponents. So let's take a look. I get an x cubed, x squared, and x, just a number. I get x to the 4th. So I'm going to do that one first. Are there any other x to the 4th? I can only add like terms. So I make sure I only add like terms. So I can't add that to anything else. There's no other x to the 4th. So I just write 3x to the 4th. I like to mark them off when I'm done with them. You don't have to do that, but I like to do that. All right, what else is next? Well, let's do the cubes next. So I've got an 8x cubed, and I got a minus 2x cubed. Let's just do that in our head. 8x cubed minus 2x cubed is 6, positive 6x cubed. I'm done with those. What's the next highest power? It'd be x squared. So I've got a minus 2x squared, and I got a plus 1x squared. So negative 2 plus 1. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1, and in this case, it's x squared. You could put the 1 there if you wanted to. You don't need it. It just looks a little nicer and cleaner if you don't put the 1 there. All right, so let's mark those things off. I'm done with those. What's the next variable? It's just an x. So I've got an x here and I got an x here. Let's add those together. So this is a positive 6x plus 1x. Okay, 6 plus 1 is 7, so it's a plus 7x. A lot of people forgot to put this last number down. Look, I marked them all off except for the negative 2. There's nothing else I can add it to. I've added everything else together. So I just put a minus 2, and that's my answer. It's a little long, it's a little crazy looking, but that's what this is simplified. All right, let's do the next one. This one right here. First thing I'm going to do is distribute that negative through this parentheses. And it really, on this one right here, I don't really even need that parentheses, so I'm just going to write it without the parentheses. All right, and then one more. Now, let's distribute the negative. So it's minus 2x squared. Then it's minus a negative. Minus a negative is positive 4x. And this is minus a positive. What's the opposite of positive? It's negative. And then it's just a 3. And now I just do what I did on the first problem. I just add some like terms. Start with the highest power first if we want to put it in standard form. So there's x cubed. Are there any other x cubes? Nope, not on this one. So I just write down x cubed. What's the next one? It's x squared. So I got a couple of those. So I got this minus 2x squared, and I got this minus 2x squared. If you need to write it off to the side, do it. It's negative 2 minus 2. So you should be able to do that in your head. What's negative 2 minus 2? Add a line, change the sign. It's negative 4x squared. Okay, because it has an x squared. We've got to use that. We just add the coefficients, add the numbers that are out in front. I'm done with those. What's the next one? It's just the x's. This is a plus 5x and this is a plus 4x. If you add them together, you get plus 9x. I'm done with those. Then you got some regular numbers. Over there, the regular number is just a negative 2, and there was nothing to add it to. But this one, these regular numbers, or we call them constants, we have to add those together. This is a positive 10 and a minus 3. So it's just 10 minus 3, which is a plus 7, and that's your answer for number 2. Pretty simple, I think. Now we get a little bit more complicated. But what we just did right there, we're going to apply down here as well on a couple of these. So first thing I'm going to do is take the stuff that's outside the parentheses. This is multiplication. All this stuff is being multiplied by everything inside this parentheses. So I take this whole entire thing, multiply it by the first one, multiply it by the second one. So let's tell you what, let's get rid of that. Oh, goodness. Okay, there we go. All right, I just get rid of that circle. Just looks too sloppy. So let's multiply. So it's negative 2 times 4. Let's do the regular numbers, or the coefficients. So we just multiply those together. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. And then x squared times x cubed. You got to know how to do that. X squared times x cubed. There's a rule. It's called the product rule. If these are being multiplied together, we have a rule for the exponents. The rule says you add the exponents together. So that would be x to the 5th. All right, so it's negative 8x to the 5th. And then you put the next sign down, which is plus. And now you do this stuff right here, that negative 2x squared, you multiply it by 5. So negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. And then it doesn't have anything else that I can multiply by, so I just write x squared. And there's nothing else I can do with that. We can make it look a little bit nicer. We could go negative 8x to the 5th. Instead of plus a negative, it's the same thing as just saying minus 10x squared. If you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. I would accept this, okay, but this is a little neater, a little more simplified. All right, number 4. This is a FOIL method problem. Do you remember FOIL? You have a FOIL method problem when you have two binomials multiplied together, and we do. This is a binomial, this is a binomial. They're multiplied together, so we use FOIL. That means it's the order that we multiply things in. So it's x times x, which is, we'll do that in a second. But we do the first, those are the first two terms. These are the outside terms, right? This is on the outside here. This is on the outside here. That's why we call it the outside. Then we do the inside terms. These are the two that are on the inside. All right, we multiply those together. And then we do the two last terms, which would be this one and this one. All right, so that's why we call it FOIL method. Basically, it's just distributive property. You're just taking the x and multiplying it by everything in here. You're taking that minus 4 and multiplying it by everything in here. It's basically just a fancy way. It's an easy way to remember the distributive property. All right, so let's do it. The first, x times x, which is x squared. The outside is x times 4, or 4 times x, and that's positive, so it's a plus 4x. The inside terms, it's a negative 4 times x, which is a negative 4x. And then it's negative 4 times 4, which is a negative 16. Add like terms. Just like I said, we're going to be adding like terms a lot. So that's what the first two problems were. And we're going to add like terms here. There's no like terms with an x squared, so I just write down x squared. I have an x and an x here, so it's a positive 4x minus 4x. Well, what's a positive 4 minus 4? It's a 0. 0x. 0x is just a 0, so I don't need to put it there. So I'm not even going to write anything down for that. It's just a 0. What do I have left over? I got a minus 16 left over. That's your answer. It's easy as that. Now this one, it's the same idea. It's a FOIL method, but it doesn't look like a FOIL method. It doesn't look like you got two binomials. But if you remember, what do you do when you square something? You multiply it by itself. So what I would do is I would rewrite it like this. Okay? That's what it means, doesn't it? When I square something, I multiply it by itself. So I took that x plus 3, multiplied by itself. Now it kind of looks like this. It's a FOIL method. So I do first outside, inside, last. I'm not going to draw the lines this time. So the first is x squared. The outside is plus 3x. The inside is also plus 3x. Same exact thing. And then the two last ones is plus 9, because 3 times 3 is 9. Now we add like terms. There's no like terms with the x squared, but we can add these together. Plus 3x is plus 6x. A lot of people on the quiz put plus 9x. Remember, you're just adding. 3 plus 3 is 6. It's not 9. This is where you add the 9 because you went 3 times 3, which is 9. That's my answer right there. Let's keep going. Here's another FOIL method, but they're not like the same numbers. Like over here, you had an x4, x4. You had an x3 and an x3. This one's a little bit different. You don't have the exact same numbers, but it's still the same basic principle as FOIL method. So let's do it. The first, 2x times x. It's 2x squared. X times x is x squared. And then the outside, 2x times 2, which is 2 times 2, which is 4. And then you have the x right there. The inside is just plus 5x. That's pretty easy. And then the last terms, it's 5 times 2, which is 10. It's plus 10. Add like terms. There's no x squareds here, so I can't add that to anything, so I just drop it down. I'm done with it. I like to mark them off. You don't have to do that, but I like to do that. Now you do have two x's though. You got a 4x and a 5x. They're both positive, so that's 4 plus 5 is 9, so it's a 9x. Done with those. And the only thing you have left is a plus 10. That's your answer. This next one, it's a little bit tricky, but if you realized what you had to do here, right here, it was x plus 3 squared, so you'd put them down twice. But this one, it's cubed. So we're not going to put them down twice. We're going to put them down 3 times. So I've got a 2x plus 1. Wow. Class is over already. And a 2x plus 1. Oh, and another one. I acted like that was the last one. Now it's the last one. So there's 2x plus 1 3 times. So we have to multiply them together. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to put that. I'm only going to do 2 at a time. I'm not going to try to multiply all 3 of them at the same time. I'm just going to do 2 at a time. So I'm going to leave this till the end. So I'm just going to put 2x plus 1. And let's figure out what this is going to be. Again, this is a FOIL method. So let's do that quickly. So 4x squared plus 2x plus 2x. Let's do that in our head. Plus 2x is plus 4x. And then plus my last two terms, 1 times 1 is 1. So now what I'm going to do on this, it's not really FOIL method, but it's distributive property. I'm going to take that 2x and multiply it by everything in this parenthesis. So let's do that. 2 times 4 is 8. And then x times x cubed, or x squared, sorry, I was getting ahead of myself, is x cubed. Then the 2x times this. 2 times 4 is 8. 8, or x times x is x squared. Sorry for my sloppy writing. And then I got to do the 2x times 1, which is just 2x. All right? And let's continue. Let's take that 1, and we're going to take that 1 and multiply it by everything. Well, that's pretty easy because it's just times 1, so it really just stays the same. So it's plus 4x squared plus 4x plus 1. Add like terms. There's no other x cubed, so I just write 8x cubed. I'm done with it, so I like to mark it out. I got a couple x squared, so it's 8 and 4, which is 12 x squared. And then I got a 2 and a 4. I got my x's together, so that's a plus 6x. I'm done with those. And then I just have a plus 1, and that is my answer. All right? This is basically the same thing as this step right here. We're just taking the x, distributing, take the 2, distribute. Let's do that very quickly, and we'll be finished. X times x is x cubed. X times negative 2x is negative 2x squared. X times 4 is plus 4x. Let's do the 2 and multiply it by through, distribute it through. So I get a plus 2x squared. And then I got a minus 4x. And then I've got a plus 8. There's no x cubed. There's only the one x cubed, so I've just got one of them. I got a couple x squareds. It's negative 2x squared plus 2x squared, which actually adds up to 0. So I don't have to write anything down because it's 0x squared. Same thing with the x's. This is a plus 4x and a minus 4x. They add up to 0 as well. What am I left with? I'm just left with an 8. That's how we only get the 2 terms, because those added up to 0. I told you today that I would not put a long division. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that on the test. Remember, I give you one freebie. Okay, so all you have to do is write the word free, okay, in the box that you want the freebie on. You can pick whatever problem. It could be the hardest one. It could be the easiest one. I would think that you would do the hardest one. So test tomorrow, and good luck on it. Hope you do well. That's it. See ya.